Yo, Nick.
Feed. Hey, what are you doing?
I was just going to ask you, what are you doing?
Well, I'm making a list.
Okay.
I'm listing out some activities. It seems, and I don't know if you've noticed this week, there are a lot of people on the internet this week that don't seem to have anything better to do. They're looking for, I don't know what they're looking for exactly. But
They're looking for attention.
They're looking for something, and I thought there's got to be a better use of time. So I'm making a list of things that people could do.
Okay. What do you got on the list?
So some helpful things: feed your pets.
Okay.
Clean out your car. If your car's like mine, there's shit all in it. Mostly my kid's fault. Do some CrossFit.
Okay.
You could do some cross stitch if CrossFit isn't your thing. Like, this is going to go either way.
Or you could do extreme cross stitch and still risk injury.
Extreme cross stitch. You know, there's lots of options. Another one I've got on here is you could make an appointment with your CP.
What's a CP?
Your CP. You don't have a CP? Okay, so a CP is a special kind of doctor. It's a cranial proctologist.
I still. What does a cranial proctologist do?
Basically, if you go see your cranial proctologist, they're going to help you get your head.
Well, welcome to Thursday night. You know what that means? That means that it's time for ATGLive, your Thursday night home for all things stars, everything stars, everything. You get your collectors information, you get your news, you get your special guests, you get your deep dives, and we've also started coming up with woodworking tips for people who are really into Star Wars. We'll get to that.
You want to get your dovetail joints just right, so that when you do that wood joinery in the corners, none of your stuff falls apart.
If you want your R2 unit to, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but Nick,
hey, but you know what? That's appropriate. That's appropriate because most of those original R2-D2s were mostly made of wood, and a lot of people don't realize that it was a wooden frame and skinned with metal around it, and they still kind of are sometimes. I'm ashamed. No, I'm not ashamed. I'm a nerd. That's what I do. I was gonna say, I have spent a decent amount of time on some droid building forums trying to figure out, is this something I could really do in my life? The answer is no. But when you read about it, you read about the internal frame and the metal, and you have to get somebody to cast the head for you, unless you just have a big like spaghetti strainer you want to use.
I've thought about, like, even whenever I thought about 501st, first of all, I would probably have to be like, I'd have to be one of those weird looking, maybe I could 501st as Jabba the Hutt, but the ability to build and seal and all that, it's way too much. I have so much. That's what, like, I when I see these 501st people, I'm like, wow, that's a fan, that's fandom, that's dedication. And then my second thought is, that's a skill I'll never have.
Yeah, so, it's amazing. And I've done a fair amount of woodworking in my life. I have a luckily grandfather and father who were woodworkers and taught me a bunch of stuff. Still not building an R2-D2.
No, it's not going to happen. Not in my life.
As much as I might like to.
Well, hey, let's talk for a minute before we get into the show about our little fantasy sports ball thing. So if you were watching last month, you know that we have created this weekly sort of, it's a fantasy football type, except we've selected different Star Wars categories, and it was myself, it was Nick, and it was our friend Kelsey Puckett from ESPN. She drives the Never Tell Me the Odds show, one of our favorites. If you're not listening to Never Tell Me the Odds, what are you doing?
Check them out.
As soon as we're done here, go download it and check them out. But so week to week, so the first week it was Jedi, and Nick won handily. This week, however, we had the category of troopers, and let me just bring up the I have the scoring here, how it came out this week. The scoring was it was Shadow Trooper, which was Kelsey. She only got 17%, 17.6%. Classic Trooper, which was Nick, which was 38%, which I was convinced was going to run away with it. But Scout Trooper, my choice, got 44%, which means that I am this week's winner. However, the standings look like this. So the way it works is for every percentage point of the week, you get that many points for the week. And Nick, with his impressive win last week, is at 97 points. I'm at 75. The Bristol Banthas, Kelsey, is at 28 points. However, I think she's got some big wins coming up. Nick, any comments on this past week before we preview next week?
Well, first of all, Matt says that it's rigged, so you don't know what you're talking about, Matt. I'm sorry. Unless you're in favor of me, then maybe it is rigged. Use the Donald Trump school of how this works. If I didn't win, it's rigged. That's the way it goes. No, this is a lot of fun. And as we've talked about it, when we did those picks, I feel like I've started out strong, but I also feel like I got good matchups the first 2 weeks.
Yep.
I'm headed for a couple of dips. I know I've got a Mon Mothma and Agent Callus ahead of me that are probably not going to play. It's like having both of your quarterbacks having the same bye week in real fantasy football. Like there's nothing I can do about it.
I think the Rebels week is a bye week for you with
correct. There's going to be a couple of tough beats in there, but I'm hoping that the strong start I've had the first 2 weeks is going to keep me in the competition for at least a good bit of this.
Keep you going moving forward. Well, this week it's going to be creatures. And here's the thing. What you need to do is you need to vote and you need to share. Follow us at ATGcast and then or follow Nick at WillsPod. We share them there. Find the survey, click your vote of your favorite. And if you share it, we put you into a drawing to win a little swag pack for the week. So we'll draw we'll draw this week's in the next day or two. But next week it's creature. So let me run who our creature picks were for next week. I think this is where the race starts to get interesting. Here we go.
This one, I feel like I have to take at this point just so it doesn't get taken by someone else because it's my team name, the Bantha. I mean, just like a fun creature anyway. I mean, they look amazing with their giant viral horn type thing. They're pretty awesome.
There's one creature. It's weird. It's awkward. The stop motion animation of it all in 1980 in Empire Strikes Back made me go, yeah, I feel like I need one of those. And I don't care what it smells like on the inside or the outside. We're throwing the Tauntaun in the category for my creature pick.
I think I'm going to go with the Rancor just because the combination of stop motion and puppetry, the Rancor was always one of my favorite things to see on screen. It lives in Jabba's basement, for goodness sake. How bad could it be? So. So the voting will start on Monday. Nick, I think this is a close week. I can't pick a clear winner on this one. Yeah,
I think this has the potential to be one of the closest weeks out of all 11 that we did.
Yeah,
very intrigued to see how this goes.
What I noticed was that we each picked a creature from one of the original 3 films. We had New Hope, Empire, and Jedi, which is.
And that's, there's something to this. And we talked about this that night when we had our draft, picking different things. Like, are you targeting your audience? Are you picking a personal favorite? Yeah. Are you picking somebody who thinks going to get votes and points? Because I know there's a whole bunch of Phantom Menace people out there who like what's the one with the big muscles that rips the thing in half underwater?
Oh, yeah. The whatever, the big fish.
I forget what. Yes. Yeah. The fish.
There's always
a bigger fish guy.
Right.
The one with the jacked up monster T-Rex arms or whatever it is. So there are a lot of other creatures out there, but yeah, sometimes you gotta go with the classics.
Yeah. So we're going into week 3. It's still anybody's race at this point. And this week, like I said, I have no idea who's going to win. Make sure you vote on Monday. Nick, we're going to get to the news, but before we do, we need to do this.
toast time.
Toast time. Time for toast.
Our toast, and I'm glad you pointed this out to me because I didn't realize that we were rolling up on an anniversary today. But today marks the 1-year anniversary of the debut of the Ahsoka show.
Whoa!
Which, first of all, I know that partially it's because I have a job and kids and a real life outside of Star Wars podcasting. Gasp! I know, shocking.
I know, weird. Loser. That
makes all the time like run together and seem so quick, but like. I'm pretty sure if you stopped me on the street tomorrow and said, "Hey, when did Kenobi come out?" I'd be like, "Oh, that was last summer."
Yeah.
It's not. It's like 4 or 5 years ago because we were in Anaheim. And so the same thing with Ahsoka. Like I would have thought like, "Oh yeah, we watched that last fall." No, we didn't. We watched it a year ago. I mean, we did watch it last fall, but it was a year ago, not like, "Oh yeah, that was back in the spring." And it's just weird that August was almost or that we're rolling. I don't know. Time is weird. It's a flat circle. It messes with your head. I don't know.
All right.
Exactly. But I'm raising our toast tonight to the Ahsoka show because it did several things. It brought a beloved character. We get Ahsoka in a couple live action Mando episodes.
Yep.
But it also gives us Thrawn. It gives us, what's her name? Morgan Elsbeth. Then we get Night Sisters. We get the Rebels reunion that so many of us have, we get zombie troopers. And for everybody who read the old EU zombie trooper book, I forget what it was even called. Like that was a big moment. For me, bigger than the zombie troopers were the Kintsugi troopers with the gold helmets and the repairs. I've always been fascinated by that as a concept. So it gave us and it gave us the Rebels reunion that people like me who love Star Wars Rebels were also looking for. So it gave so many Easter eggs. It gave so many good feelings, and anniversaries are always worth celebrating. So tonight I'm raising our toast to the Ahsoka show 1 year ago. I need to go back and rewatch it. Maybe that's what I'll do this weekend as a celebration. So to Ahsoka, to everybody hanging out and watching, and to you, Pete, my friend, cheers and happy Star Wars.
Happy Star Wars. Oh, right.
And for those of you keeping score at home, this is the champagne of beers. That's the way I roll.
The champagne of beers, the fine champagne of beers.
We're fancy.
we don't do anything sort of half an effort here at
no,
ATG.
Not usually.
But we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we are back to news. We got 4 news stories to go through tonight, and we are going to be joined by a very special guest, Greg Iwinski. He's been a friend of the show for quite some time, and he is doing there. In fact, he just came into the background. He's ready to go. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come right back.
What's up, my fellow Gen X Star Wars fam? My name is Chris Rhines from Broaxium. You may know me from ATG's Force Connect that I co-hosted with Pete and Nick. Now, I'm the owner and operator of Broaxium Outpost, an online shop for all your action figure and collectibles needs like Star Wars Black Series, G.I. Joe Classified, Star Wars Vintage Collection, Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series and Vintage Collection, Transformers Studio Series, Star Wars action figures, Masters of the Universe, and much, much more, including Star Wars action. Alright, I have a lot of Star Wars stuff, I'm just saying. Stop by and check out the store at www.broaxiumoutpost.com. Sign up to become a part of the Bounty Hunters Guild and stay updated on new pre-orders, sales, and exclusive Broaxium content. Find something you like? Use the promo code ATG5 for 5% off your first order. We have Star Wars figures, by the way.
Well, welcome back. Yes, if you're thinking about getting any sort of Star Wars collectibles or any collectibles, go to our good friend Chris Ryan's, and we can go from there. I would love to see that. Before we go to news, we're gonna shake things up a little bit, and we are going to bring in our special guest, Greg Iwinski, because like most of us, we're all very curious if it's going to be Beyonce or Taylor Swift or George W. Bush, which is a rumor as well, to show up at the DNC tonight. But let's bring in our good friend, Greg Iwinski.
Hello.
What's up?
Hello. Hi. As we're talking, D.L. Hughley is speaking at the convention, and that matters to me because he was Simon Styles on Studio 60. on the Sunset
Strip.
Yes, he was. Which I just bought a second copy of on DVD this summer.
So you're a physical media guy.
And this is why the many reasons Greg and I get along. I love Studio 60. I'm one of the, there's a handful. There's Greg, there's Patrick Kottner. Like, there's a group of us that just love that show. And I love Aaron Sorkin and West Wing and Sports Night and all the things.
There's your West Wing.
But I haven't, there you go, Matt. But I haven't seen Studio 60 in a bunch of years. And I keep dancing around just going ahead and buying the digital copies on Amazon so that I can watch it anytime I want to. And I just haven't, and I don't know why. And so that's probably what I'm going to do when I get
your good instincts are why, but I rewatched it during the strike, and it's an incredible thing. And I got to talk to Bradley Whitford at a Starbucks once. Amazing. And he said, I thought everyone hated Studio 60. And I said, well, we don't like it because it's realistic. We like it because it's insane. As late night writers. So I own it digitally and on disc and on disc again. But obviously D.L. Hughley, so he's on my list of one of my Studio 60 guys.
That's a good
for my eventual reboot that I do.
That you resurrect.
Yeah, I mean, it was Aaron Sorkin at his best. Was at Studio 60 because he had already peaked with West Wing and was only going to do repeats of the West Wing as different things for the next 20 years. But this one was like in an area he didn't know anything about, and that made it delightful because he's like, what must the stakes be at SNL? I don't know, global war. And in reality, the stakes are like, I really need them to put my sketch on so I don't get fired. And that's the stakes, and those are big enough for the people who live there. But no, enough about Studio 60 I will say this. I don't think Beyonce, I would put down $100 cash Beyonce is not coming out.
Okay.
And the reason why is for television. The reason why I wouldn't is we're about to hear a speech from possibly the first black woman president in 250 years of a country.
Right.
Let's not make her look like the second most famous black woman that we see tonight.
That is a great point. That is a fantastic point.
We don't want to upstage. And that's why, and Oprah went last night. It's exactly why. And so I think you might have a video message from a Taylor Swift, or you might have a video message from somebody really. Steph Curry just did one about an hour ago. Like, you might do one of those, but I don't think you have. I think you make it all about her. You've got Mark Kelly coming out, you're hitting everybody to go, hey, are you like a pretty moderate, regular white guy? This dude's an astronaut and a senator.
Right.
He's
much better than R. Kelly coming out, I think.
Yes. R. Kelly's going in to prison again.
Totally different situation.
And he will not be able to vote? I don't know. I don't know what the rules are for convicted felons voting anymore. I'm not sure.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot more gray area than we thought there was on that.
Yeah, who knows? I guess
a little bit of orange area on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or yes, there we go. Also, I think Nick, if you've ever worked in any kind of American Christian youth ministry,
which I have,
the DNC and the RNC bring you PTSD flashbacks.
You specialties vibe.
You specialties. Yeah, I have been in what is that? The Lucas Oil Stadium, full of people running a multi-day event and trying to get the audience to pay attention to the speakers and get off their phones and stop murmuring because you can hear it in the mic, and how do we show a video that entertains them between bands, and all of the stuff that I'm watching on the raw C-SPAN feed. I'm going, oh man, I know exactly. It's exactly the same. Even the Kerry Washington thing of like, everyone take out your phones and take a picture. I'm like, I've seen youth pastors do this.
And from an at-home standpoint, we were watching it before I came out here, and Shomari Figures, the Congress candidate running for the 2nd District here in Alabama, was on speaking, doing a great job, and whatever channel we were on, they cut away to the people on the floor with microphones. I was like, no, go back. I want to hear what that guy had.
That's why I will say, I think I tweeted about it. C-SPAN is an incredible public service because C-SPAN, especially wherever you are on a spectrum, C-SPAN is giving you no politics, no spin, no. They're going, here's the feed. Just watch what they're doing, and you can think, which is great. It's that's what the network should be doing. But then their very expensive anchors wouldn't be have anything to do. Oh, a cop from Michigan. Wow, they're dry. This night, unlike I don't want to take up all your time talking about the DNC when we're supposed to talk about Star Wars, but I really could do a live. I could do a live watch of the DNC.
It needs to be like your halftime show. You just need to.
Halftime show will be coming back. I believe it'll be coming back once a week, I believe, for the regular season. But I do think that tonight what I'm seeing is they're going to take stuff from the whole week, and this will be if people are only tuning in one night, let's give them a little bit of everything. So now you have a sheriff from Michigan to be like, haha, we don't hate police. Joe Biden said fund the police in his State of the Union. Who would hate the police? Not this black president. She was a cop, basically. Yeah,
it's of NWA. It's fun the police.
It is so fun because she's centrist on all the issues that matter, like loving police. It's great. It's great. I'm still excited.
Here, as we said, you are one of our favorite people to talk to. You always have funny things to say. We've talked about the writer's strike. Y'all were great during Podathon. But there's something else that we've kind of been dancing around for a good little while now and finding the opportunity to talk about it, which is Young Jedi Adventures. You, of course, are a TV writer. You have written for Last Week Tonight, Stephen Colbert. What's the Bomani
Game Theory with Bomani Jones.
I always forget the name of that.
Yep. So sometimes they re-air it on HBO, and I get like $2. It's great.
Exactly. So you're a TV writer. You also are a Star Wars fan, and you have kids. So this perfect nexus of getting the opportunity to write some episodes of Young Jedi Adventures came across your plate. Tell us about getting into that, kind of set that up for us.
Yeah, so the dancing around was really because animation has a crazy lag time. So a lot of this was years ago. But I was able to write a freelance episode for season 1. And that was really cool. That was the Feather Frenzy, I believe is what it was called. Yeah. It was called something, my first draft was named something else. But it's about the Firehawks, which is very exciting because the show is canon. It's like I need to send a big manila folder full of stuff to Wikipedia to be like, this is canon, so you should put this in. Please put this in. Like the Firehawks, we got to have the actual Nash Durango. If you don't know the show, they're all 8-year-olds. It's during the High Republic. They're essentially isolated from every sad thing you know about the High Republic. They don't know about it, and it doesn't happen to them. But it's Kai Brightstar, a black boy, lead character of a Star Wars show. Somehow the angry people haven't found that yet to attack it. But
once before Skeleton Crew,
they'll find us. And then you have Liz Soleil, who's an alien. I believe she's a Pantoran. No, I'm gonna get killed for saying this wrong. And this clip will come back if I ever get to make a Star Wars movie. They'll be like, he didn't know what she was. I forget. And then you have Nubs. Nubs is a Pooba. He is a blue, furry, small man with giant strength and doesn't speak Basic. He speaks Pooba, and only a couple characters understand him. And also, Poobas grow up to look... Poobas make Wookiees look small when they grow up. So, and that happens in this season too. So I was
going to say, there's an episode where they talk about that, right?
Yeah, so there's 3 Jedi, and then their pilot / Han Solo friend, Nash Durango. And she flies around and flies them around, runs a ship. Her parents running a shipping company. And so they go on adventures. That's it. These are our 4 characters. They go on adventures. They have their own ships. Sometimes other characters from the High Republic drop in, which is very fun. It's really cool. And so season 2 just dropped. And so now I am out talking about these episodes because I have now 5, but 4 of the season 2 episodes are my episodes. And so just talking about them. Because I want people to watch the show, and I think some people don't know about it. And it, on Disney Plus, other shows that are, that are also giant can kind of smash it down in the list if you're not looking for it, or the algorithm doesn't think of you as a Star Wars person. But it's very fun. The animation is some of the best animation in children's television right now. And it is a show that it's a Disney show, it's a Disney Junior show, it hits all those boxes, but it also is a Lucasfilm show. Yeah. And so it follows the canon, and it is, and it is a Story Group approved show. Like, it's a real Star Wars show that we worked really hard on, and I have a couple more episodes coming out later, but just excited to talk about them and the world and try to get people hyped because you can watch it with your kids. And if you can watch it by yourself, if you're not a kid, it is a very sweet preschooly show, but we still there are parts of it that are so scary that my children asked to turn it off this time, and I was very surprised because I have a 5 and a 3-year-old, and we got to an episode in season 2 we have a pirate character who's a droid pirate named Black Bolt. And he was so scary, they said, we want to skip this episode.
Oh my gosh.
So
was it one of your episodes, Greg?
No, that's not. Okay. So I have 4 episodes in this, and so season 2, they've been on Tanu for longer. They get new, bigger outfits. They're closer to becoming Padawans, right? Like they've been on some adventures, fought off people. So I got to write 4 of them. They're all alliterative. I don't know why I'm always like that, but it's I think it's like the Rustler Roundup, which is a Western. I worked very hard to try to make them all different genres. So that's a Western about 2 rival clans fighting over Nerfs. If you've never seen Nerfs before, we have actual Nerfs, and these are Nerf herders.
Excellent.
So you get to see what a Nerf looks like. And so there's a rivalry episode in that. Then we have
Secret Ship.
Secret Ship. Secret Ship is Princess Anaya, who is a young princess who wants to be a mechanic, but she's a princess. And it's the how do I be both things at once? And her and Nash get to go on a crazy adventure, flying a ship. And I got to she gets to invent a new part for her ship that, if you look closely, looks a little bit like the oscillation overthruster from Buckaroo Banzai: Adventures Across the Eighth Dimension. So if you look at it, it looks a little oscillation overthrustery. So there's that one. Then there's a sticky situation, I think is what it's called. I don't know why I don't remember, because you spent a lot of time writing the script, not the title. I will be honest. That one is about. This one is a horror movie, and it is for. I can't. You guys, you watch them and go like, how did we get these approved? But it is. Kai gets stuck in a temple full of gigantic spiders, and he is arachnophobic.
Oh my gosh.
So, and let me tell you, it was funny because I was like, are they going to be scary spiders? And it was like, no. And then I watched the animatic, and I'm like, oh, never mind. If you are arachnophobic, the episode is going to be... so I don't know. So now I'll get a bunch of angry parents who are like, why did you make my kid afraid of spiders forever? But they are crystal web spiders, which is a fun thing that also is, as you guys would know, Legends inspired from the Glitterstim spiders.
Yep.
So they get out and they go all over, and then there is a king spider that he has to deal with that's even bigger than the big ones. It's really gross. The sound is more gross than the visuals, but it's gross. And but it's he's learning and growing, and we have to face fear. And I also wanted to make an episode for kids where it was okay to say, if you are really afraid of something, bravery is acting in spite of that fear. But you don't have to reach a place where you're never afraid of it. Mm-hmm. At the end of the episode, he's still afraid of spiders, but he did what he had to do.
Yes.
So I wanted to, in thinking how my children would see them, other children would see them, just because I think there are things. My son talks about phobias all the time. He's like, oh, I think I have a phobia of bees, or I have a phobia of this. It's like, okay, you might, but we have to move forward. And then the fourth one I did was Jumping Jetpack, which is. We have a junkyard character, Marla, who is she runs a junkyard, and it's her and Maz Kanata. It's young Maz, because this is Maz in -300 or whatever. So it's Maz Kanata as like she's already got the castle, but but it's her coming back because the two of them used to be like a 2-woman duo doing adventures, and so she comes back to see her old friend.
So did you, like, when you were writing it, were you like, I want to put Maz Kanata in this and I have to go get permission, or like how does the writing process work for this? And I
think it's all different, where it's like, I think there are times in all television shows, and this one as well, I think you always, we don't really have big arcs in preschool TV, but they're like, we have all these things we want to do, and so you kind of sometimes, usually you get handed some chunk of some kind of, not prerequisite, but like, this episode is going to be this or about this or whatever. But also you pitch ideas, so it's not that different than, like if you're doing a sitcom where they're going to tell you, well, you do have to have this top level arc, but you're pitching the B and the C story and you're trying to put stuff in. So it's a mixture of they're saying you're going to do this, or we need this, or we want this character, and then you saying, can I do this? Can I do this?
Yeah.
And just trying to, but also your job as a staff writer is to make it work. Like, you're not, if you're not show running, it's like, okay, we need an episode like this, and you're going, okay, what's the coolest stuff I could do here? And that was the really fun thing, was just kind of taking the challenge myself of every time I came up and it was my turn for one, to try to just see what the coolest, funnest, weirdest thing that I hadn't seen before in Star Wars was.
So I think that what you mentioned something which is what's got me more interested. I mean, other than the fact that now I know you wrote 4 episodes this season, but more interested to watch it is, as you pointed out, you have multiple times been like, what's something from when I was reading those old paperback books and that was all I had in Star Wars? What's something that feels like it might fit well here? And so it's got Easter eggs for, adult fans.
Yeah, I think they're Easter eggs. I do think as well, I think what you learn a lot, and you hear it from a lot of people, where it's like, it's kind of like, hey man, it's not all Easter eggs, because I can come in and be like, I think I brought up the Quam Quay, which were they're the telepathic dinosaur birds from the Zizor trilogy. Or from she was at Shadows of the Empire. When Luke lands on the planet and he has to convince the 2 bird tribes to get along, and they all speak telepathically in the Force. And I brought that up, and it was like, to me, that was the moment I learned, oh, never. Okay, I should dial.
You can go too far.
I should dial it down to things people know. Yeah, I was like, oh, this is not there. This is a show for children.
Well, and at some point there has to be the Kuat shipyards episode, right? I know.
Well, I don't know if you. So this is my. If you look at the first episode I did Feather Frenzy.
Yes. Yep.
So the special businessman who comes at the end, Grip Liskell. He's Kuati. His robes and all of his outfit is exactly the same as what Kuat looked like in Legends. So he is described in the script as he's Kuati. He is a Kuat businessman, and he's coming to the planet to do business with Nash's parents, and then he sees the birds and loves the birds. And then he comes back in not an episode that was mine, but someone put him in an episode in season 2 that's in a mine. I think it's called Yours, Mine, and Ours. And in that episode, there's a bunch of people touring a mine, and he is a businessman touring the mine there. So Grip Liskell also looks like me, but Grip Liskell so the Kuatis are. I know they were already mentioned in canon, in the new canon, but the hard existence. Here we are. The Kuatis are here. I have so many ideas about the Kuatis. I could talk about them.
Do you have much influence in the design and look, other than the way you do it in your script, or do you get any sort of creative meetings?
It really depends on each animated show, kids animated show too, where you are talking with what your showrunner wants, and also the assets that you have in animation, because again, everything with budget wise, every new tree you make or bush you make or clothing you make, it costs money. Yeah. And so, but also, talking with the storyboard artists and the animators, but in your script, you're describing an idea, and so many times animators make it so much cooler than you could have thought. So they're fighting, and then he flips over and he does this, and then when you see it, you're just like, this is amazing. Yeah. So there's so much stuff, even in the one with Maz, I'm like, they run through the forest or whatever, and then when you see them going, it's the shots, and they're doing such great stuff. So no, the animation team on that show is they're incredible, but all across children's animation, which the Animation Guild is negotiating now.
Yep.
So the Animation Guild is negotiating and had to extend because AMPTP, who you may remember from the last strike, same miserable people, they are not giving them things. And all the things we talked about before, there are no rooms. There are no minimum minimum duration. There's no anything. The way that animation works now in almost every show is, I'm the head writer. I do all the story breaking myself. I do all the arc stuff. I do all that stuff. And then I freelance out episodes just to be written by people who get one freelance fee, then get nothing else.
That's it, yeah.
So animation is working really hard and this is not just that's for the animation writers, but so much of the actual animation companies are trying to replace with AI because they don't care about quality. And it's hard because this is why, if you are on social media, the Animation Guild is on Twitter, Instagram, everything, find their posts, repost those posts, put that up, because they need the support, because I can tell you a quote from Carol Lombardini, who we all know from the last one, was, well, you don't get paid as much because your work's not as valuable.
Right.
And it's like, I'm pretty sure Paw Patrol's valuable.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Spidey and his Amazing Friends is valuable. I'm sure the Ninja Turtles are valuable.
Yeah.
They're on every lunchbox in America. They're really valuable. Bluey is valuable.
Right.
So
they're more focused on the merch and the licensing that they can get from it than they are from the quality of the show, I guess.
Yeah, and so I think you just run into a place where the companies are also saying, just, it would, the argument they have is, well, it would bankrupt us for us to pay you like other television, and the answer is just that's not true.
Right.
There's no version where a fair wage for animation writers and animators means that Nickelodeon just goes, I guess we don't make shows anymore. Oh well, like that's not how it works, So in the same way that they told us, we can't cover soap operas anymore. Soap operas are dying. Why do you want them in this contract? And then 2 months after we got the contract that included soap opera writers, CBS announced a brand new soap opera that they're doing daily on CBS. So, they always cry poor. They always say whatever, and they're doing it with animation. So it's just, please send them their support, because the teams they do incredible work. And if you watch the show, I mean, there are lightsaber battles in almost every show, and the light coming off the saber onto people, and like the reflections, and it looks so great.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
It's cool. I want to ask you a little bit about, and I know it's sometimes when you ask writers, how do you write? What's the process? But you've written for late night television. You've written for sports related things. I have a really good friend who's a children's book author. Talk a little bit about, and I know you love things like Freemaker Adventures and you're a Star Wars fan. So like writing for kids, and you have kids. So is it easier than I think it is because you have kids? Because I have 4 kids, but I think, how do I make these people happy? Like, I'm not sure. Talk about the process of writing a kid show that, not only encompasses, things that are going to speak to them, their morals. Like I watched, the first couple episodes, I haven't watched all of it. I'm going to, but like even in that, it's the the episode with the prince when they're going to help the prince. I think the first episode, and it's well, why am I supposed to help them? I'm a prince. I don't have to do that. And it's teaching them these things.
Yeah.
Talk about the process of writing a kid show, and also thank you for not adding a Caillou type character, because if there's anything worse that's happened in children's television, it might be Caillou, in my opinion.
This was the first children's show I had worked on, and so big jump for me, and was incredibly lucky to get in the door. I think something that I realized and learned was not, you have kids. My kids aren't everyone's kids.
Correct.
So learning to step back and go, well, if I write a show for just my kids, they watch TV a certain way. What I think is appropriate for them is a certain thing. And so I'm raising them like this, and in a television show this big that you can buy these kids lightsabers in Target.
Right.
You're writing it for all kids, and so thinking about kids in different situations than mine, better and worse situations than my kids, who all of these things, trying to think about, are kids having it modeled to them or not in their home? Are they, do they have examples around? Do they know anything about Star Wars? Do they not? Like, do their parents like it? Do their parents hate it? All of these things. So really in trying to push to universal, not themes, but to say in these episodes, like I think that's why, like, this episode with Princess Anaya, and being a pilot, there is a moment in there where they crash land on a planet. She knows the part they need to fix it. And when she goes to the mechanic shop, he says, no, we don't serve you. We only serve real mechanics here, not princesses. Mm-hmm. And for me, there are a bunch of kids who look a bunch of ways who that is going to hit them and their parents in a way that says, oh, I know that.
Yeah. That
stinks. And then to push through that and to say, no, and she shows him up that she knows more mechanic stuff than him, and then she gets all the parts. And to show that moment. Or I think, with Kai, where he's afraid and he doesn't like something and he doesn't like doing it, but he, not just that he's brave, but not to spoil this episode, but in the end, he almost has to show some compassion for this creature that he does not like. Right. That's the only way he's going to save the day. And so just these things to try to watch them and understand in some deep level, because I personally don't love, like, I mean, I grew up with Davy and Goliath. I know the very hard over the head moral of like, don't shoplift, kids. And I don't want to do that, and I don't think this show doesn't do that. It does. I think it does a good example of they're all trying to be Jedi. And so what are the Jedi things that come down that you learn even as a kid? And so that's really like the lessons that you want Anakin to know, the lessons that, Kenobi's doing or that Ahsoka's struggling through. These are all lessons that you start learning all the way back then. Yep. And so I think it's great to see them grow in those ways and learn in those ways. And so for me, it was a chance to tell an exciting Star Wars story, an authentic Star Wars story made by fans, right, who know it and love it. But also I think the other thing I realized was all of us have onboarded our children to Star Wars with something made probably for not a 5-year-old.
Right.
Correct. A New Hope is not for a 5-year-old. Return of the Jedi, when they're torturing a gonk droid on the skiff, is not really. That's not really for 5-year-olds. Like, there's a lot of stuff out there. Rebels is the closest, but also, when there's some parts in there where I'm like skip, like that. And so with all of that, Clone Wars, I'm not showing them kids' heads chopped off. So with all of it, you're kind of dodging and introducing, and this becomes a way that if you love Star Wars, you can show it to your kid, and they will fall in love with Star Wars. So now both of you share that love, but you have different jumping in points. Because my kids, they love A New Hope. They watch it all the time. They love the original trilogy characters. They think it's great. They've seen Phantom Menace a little bit, but they love that. But to them, Star Wars is Kai Brightstar and Liz Soleil Nubs. That's this is, and they know those characters, and when they play Jedi, that's who they're playing and they're using, and that just gets them into the whole universe that they want to know more stuff and what happens, and then all the High Republic books that will be there for them when they become kid readers, young adults, and and the Acolyte and whatever else happens in the next 15, 20 years in this time in Star Wars history. That's the space that they got to know first. But it's interesting to me because we've talked offline a lot about fandom, and that there's the guys who I know who saw A New Hope in the theater, and that's like a generation. Favreau, Filoni, it's these guys they saw it in a theater, and then there's people who saw the prequels in the theater, and that was their thing. And for me, I was in between those, so Zahn books become my in, and then I'm playing Star Wars Masters of Terras Kasi on PS1, and I'm and you're doing all this stuff where you're like, everything's ancillary. My entire Star Wars experience is ancillary, which I have a side thought about that when I finish this one, but just the idea that you could do that, or you could be a kid that got onboarded by Rebels or by Clone Wars, and those people who are such hardcore Ahsoka fans, or you could be someone who the sequel movies, that's what you watched when you were a kid, and that sets you off. Or now you get to this point where it's like, and obviously the kids who are into Mando, but I mean, Mando is not a 5-year-old show. It is not. I love it, but it's not a 5-year-old show. And so now going, there will be a whole chunk of kids who this is their first Star Wars thing.
That's great.
And so when that really hit me, then the gravity of taking it as seriously as possible and making it as good as possible, that just even got strengthened because I. You want it to be something they'll love forever. I want this to be a cartoon that my kid shows his kid. This is Star Wars.
That's awesome. And one of the beauties in that is, and I think we said this maybe during, I don't remember where we said it, maybe we just texted it, but it's your name in the teal green letters on that.
Yeah, and big credit to our showrunner. Mike Olson's our showrunner. He's incredible. He's made a bunch of different hits, but he made this and really shepherded it, and that was the thing. He was like, we got to have it, like things like that. The fact that the opening is orchestral, which I love so much. Like it's his show, and we wrote on it, but like the choices he made were so great. And to see my name up there in the blue star field is, my kids, they cheer when it comes up in the credits because they're like, yeah, and that feels insane. It feels so good. And I put so much little stuff in there for them. let me say, I know that I'm going very long.
That's all right.
That I think that the I don't know the whole fandom. There's 7 billion people on Earth. Like 3 billion know what Star Wars is. A billion of those people really like it. I don't know. I'm not a fan police. Okay.
Fair enough.
Right.
And I'm so happy to not be, because what a miserable job fan police.
What a terrible existence.
So like, even the people who are really, I'm like, you know what? I don't care, man. Cool, you're mad. I don't care. But it's this, which is, I grew up, and my Star Wars were books, and a lot of books that were way down the line from Thrawn. You know, we're talking New Jedi Order and Swarm War, and
True,
the Center Point Crisis of Center Point.
Yep.
You know, like Tales from Jabba's Palace. Like, we're just getting deep. We're getting into it, right? When you go back and look at those, even though we love them, a lot of you can admit that's like, these are not Pulitzer Prize winning books. They're pulp sci-fi books, and I love them. I've reread a bunch. I just reread Plagueis, and I will say, a mutual friend, I think he goes, James Luceno's books are great men giving speeches about how the world should be. And that is exactly what Plagueis as a book is. It's just that. But the people who didn't grow up with the movies being their touchstone, and didn't grow up with like big, huge movies or whatever, I believe, for me, that's the reason that so many of the shows, I'm like, cool. Because my bar is not The Empire Strikes Back for a Star Wars TV show.
Right.
My bar is The Courtship of Princess Leia.
Yeah.
My bar is that one arc where Luke was talking to the evil Force bird that was like trying to convince him to become a Sith or something, and then Mara Jade got like Force cancer, and the bird cried on her, and it healed her. That's my bar. The Quam Quay is my bar.
In love with a ghost that lives in a computer inside.
Yes. Like this, that's my Star Wars, is the EU. And the EU, half of it is not good. And so if you make a bunch of TV shows and they're as good as the EU, that to me is, I'm happy with that. Because that, I never expected every movie to be The Empire Strikes Back, one of the best movies of all time, one of the most famous movies of all time. I didn't expect anything to be that. Yeah. So, that's why I'm having a better time with the shows than some people, I think, is because, again, my bar are other things I loved that I could admit weren't that good.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect.
It.
Like, go back and read Thraken Sal Solo trying to ruin Han Solo's life.
Yes.
You know that one. Or Chewbacca getting a moon dropped on him. Or the whole... Or the Bothans going psycho ham on doing genetic warfare built to the DNA of Yuuzhan Vong and declaring our cry so that they could commit, essentially, genocide. And then Luke being like, yo, I don't think we should genocide. Like... the things I'm talking about that might sound ridiculous to people, this is why I love Star Wars. These crazy stories.
The funny thing is, the people who and I'll be careful that we don't go into this rabbit hole, but the people who bitch about what's on the shows now love that stuff too. And if you were to describe the stuff that they're complaining about now and give that to them, we're going to give you a coven of space witches who have created twins who you're what? I mean, if that was a book in 1986, we would be all over it.
If in 2004 they were like, young Obi-Wan is cutting up fish for a living, but then he takes Princess Leia on a little adventure because people are trying to kidnap her, and you'd be like, yeah, I'll read that for $7.95. That's fine. Give me the paperback right now.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. Cool, whatever. Like, go back and read Isane Isard fighting X-Wing Rogue Squadron. You know, like
give us the Force caterpillars that block the Force that Thrawn wears around his shoulder.
Oh, the Ysalamiri, yes. Ysalamiri, yes. Bring those back. Let's do a whole Nogri show. Just Nogri out there, just like stabbing people in the dark.
Yeah. It's. And I have to say, I don't know that I've ever said this theory on a camera on a recorded place before, but you mentioned Chewbacca getting the moon, landed on him. I'm convinced, and there's probably no way to ever prove this, that somebody that was writing Infinity War, when Thanos throws the big chunk of the whatever at Tony Stark and he makes the comment about threw a moon at me, that was a Star Wars fan that wrote that line. Interesting.
Yeah, it's I mean, eventually we got to get the Star Wars Marvel crossover, right? I mean, that's what we get.
Patton Oswalt started it. We just have to make it happen.
Again, as we've all talked about, Alien Exodus, the canceled and never really approved book, proves that we are in the same universe as Star Wars, and it can all cross over. All they have to do is go far back enough in time and in space.
Well, what we will have to do sometime coming up in the future is we'll have you on and we'll just have like crazy Star Wars conspiracy night, and we'll just go every rabbit hole we can think of.
Let's see who can get further deep down the EU rabbit holes.
Exactly.
That's what we need to do.
That's right. Make it a competition. Well, we're not going to keep you any longer tonight. We are so thankful to get the chance to hang out with you. We always love it when you're on. We're excited for you, Young Jedi Adventures. We're excited to know, other things you're going to work on. So if you have anything to plug, let us know what's going on.
Who baby, boy, would I love. Hey, if you were hiring a TV writer, call me please. Yikes! But also you can. So it's on Disney Plus, Young Jedi Adventures season 1 and 2. Also, it airs on Disney Junior every night. Really? A new episode airs on Disney Junior, and it airs, I believe, at some point during the day on Disney XD. So if you are not Disney Plusing, but you just have Disney Channel on for your kids, just poke around Disney Junior and look for Young Jedi Adventures as well. All the watching helps.
That is awesome.
Cool.
Greg, thanks so much for being on, and we will definitely talk to you again soon.
Thanks. Bye.
See you later, Greg. Thanks. And we'll be back with more ATG Live. And we are back here with another segment. We're having so much fun tonight. Greg Iwinski, here's the thing. We always Greg. We want to talk about I don't know, Star Wars animation, which is what we were going to do tonight. And we went into these great rabbit holes. Greg is awesome. Yep. Greg is super talented. I don't know if there are any TV producers watching us, but hire this guy. Give him something to do.
Seriously.
Give him more stuff. He's just hilarious. And honestly, his Yub Nub podcast was one of the highlights of Podathon this past year. Just so great. So, but Nick, there's been some news stories, and we are going to do the news. So let's get to it.
Well, first up, The Acolyte is one and done. It was sad news. It was announced a couple days ago. The Acolyte, the Star Wars spinoff series starring Amanda Stenberg, will not be returning for a second season, according to a source at Deadline on Monday. The decision comes over a month after the series concluded at its 8-episode run on Disney Plus. Despite a promising start, The Acolyte struggled to maintain momentum and failed to meet Disney Plus's high viewership expectations for big budget productions. The show, created and helmed by Leslie Headland, launched on June 4th with 2 episodes that drew 4.8 million views on its first day. It ranked as Disney Plus's most successful series premiere of this year, amassing 11.1 million views globally within 5 days. However, viewership waned rapidly, dropping out of the Nielsen top 10 by the third week. Despite a brief resurgence following the finale, the series ultimately did not sustain its early success. Critics were mixed, with the series earning a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. Star Wars fans, similarly divided, led to a lukewarm reception. Headland pitched ideas for a second season, but ultimately Lucasfilm decided not to proceed. Pete, we could have spent the entire show talking about this one topic.
And I'm surprised we didn't.
We may come back for a little bit of overtime discussion after we do our 4 news stories, because I have a couple of thoughts. But we saw not language that said it was canceled. It wasn't. Yep. It wasn't renewed. We saw, there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack. But the short version for this first news segment is, what are your top level thoughts on one season of The Acolyte?
A lot of people are really disappointed, and I understand it. I mean, we we on this show were fans of what the show was trying to do and what it was doing, and we really enjoyed it. But the reality is, financially, it can't be renewed. It can't be renewed. If you want more Star Wars, then the Acolyte can't be renewed. And I hate to put it that way, but it's the God's honest truth. Somebody tried to post today on Twitter that, season 1 of the Clone Wars was not met with very positive reception. 100% true. However, season 1 of the Clone Wars probably cost about $20 million versus $180 million. You got 22 episodes. And so there's a little bit more room for error there. I think, honestly, it's a pure business decision. And a lot of people are bent out of shape saying that, this is the first time that there was better representation, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't disagree. However, something about the show didn't click with the masses. And no, it was not because Star Wars Theory and all the others beat it up. That's a very small percentage of the audiences. And so it's disappointing, but it's just business. Nothing personal.
It's business. That's exactly it. And I called my dad this afternoon and I asked him the question. I said, hey, I don't know if you heard, but the Acolyte's not going to get another season. Well, of course he hadn't heard because he's not chronically online like we are. And I said, how do you feel about that? I said, considering you didn't know the timeline, the character, like nothing in this show was familiar to you other than it was Star Wars. And he went, well, he was like, I could see where it would, they could do a second season. He was like, but okay. Like he was nonplussed. And that was very,
right.
I think that's representative of a lot of what made this decision. I looked up, and this is the thing too, not just Star Wars, but if you factor Marvel into this as well, I have a lot of thoughts about the streaming model, and I don't think we have time to get into all of those. But if you look at all of the the Star Wars streaming shows, we've only gotten multiple seasons for Mandalorian and Andor. Easily the two biggest, highest whatever. If Obi-Wan Kenobi had been great, we would have gotten another season of Obi-Wan. At this point, we don't know if we're getting another season of Ahsoka. It left the most doors open, but they could also completely deal with that in the Mandalorian and Grogu movie and, tie up what they want to do. I expanded this out, like I said, to Marvel. The only Marvel TV show that has gotten more than one series is Loki, or one season is Loki.
Wow, you're right.
Everything you can think of, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and a lot of these have fed into movies. Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be the new Captain America movie. We're getting, not Scarlet Witch. What's her? What was that show called? WandaVision. That became Multiverse of Madness.
And it's
Miss Marvel became the Marvels.
It's going to actually be
and it's Agatha all along. Right. So this isn't just a unique Star Wars problem. This is a streaming thing where
I think it's a Disney streaming thing too, man. I think Disney.
When you have a network TV show, you had a pilot and you ran a pilot and you audience tested it and whatever. You don't do that with streaming. You go ahead and shoot the whole thing and you hope people like it enough that you can make some more. And that's not what happened with this one.
And they're making some weird choices. And again, I know it pisses a lot of people off, but the reality is the choices they've made have not been fantastic. And look, I had my issues with the Obi-Wan show. The parts that I loved about it were fantastic. They were so good. But the parts about it I didn't like. I really didn't like. And same thing with Book of Boba Fett. And so I don't know. I think it's committing.
It's a very niche specific time and part of this story to market to the masses.
Right. We liked it.
You and I are huge, deep Star Wars nerds, and neither one of us know anything about the High Republic other than what somebody has tweeted about or who they love or, Geode, who's a sentient rock, apparently.
And we still enjoyed the show, but that's because we're at that nerd level. This was our entree to High Republic. But I mean, there's a reason why High Republic is books and comic books, and no offense to my books and comic book friends, but there's a reason why that's where that exists. And it's because for some reason it's just not, it hasn't caught on.
And I do think the positive of this is these stories can continue in those other mediums. They haven't said we're going to scrub Acolyte from the history of existence. We saw a bunch of crap yesterday about, it's been wiped from the Disney store. No, it's not. If you search for Andor on the Disney store, that's not there either. Just, some of that's just context and clues and whatever. But these stories can continue. But I think you take use my dad as an example. He just went, okay, yeah, it was fine. But he was actually more concerned with like, what's the next thing? Like, what are we doing next?
Yep. I'll tell you what we're doing next. We have another news story. So I'm going to start the news story. And that is that, let me bring up my little newsy thing here. Our next news story is that Mando and Grogu are coming from Filoni and Favreau. Both of them. Jon Favreau is co-writer for The Mandalorian, and Grogu has been confirmed. Slated for a 2026 release, the film marks Star Wars' long-awaited return to theaters, the first since The Rise of Skywalker in 2019. It will be directed by Jon Favreau. The movie will continue the adventures of Din Djarin and Grogu after the events of Mandalorian Season 3, where the duo teams up with Carson Teva and the New Republic to hunt down remnants of the Imperial forces following Moff Gideon's defeat. Man, I hope that means that Carson Teva is going to be in the show. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Dave Filoni will co-write the film alongside Favreau and serve as one of its executive producers. Filoni, recently named Lucasfilm's chief creative officer, has a rich history with the Star Wars franchise, starting with the Clone Wars. Under George Lucas, Filoni's influence has been pivotal in shaping the modern Star Wars universe, having worked on Rebels, The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Tales of the Jedi, and Tales of the Empire. His collaboration with Favreau promises a cinematic experience that will further explore the rich tapestry of Star Wars. Nick, what are your thoughts on Filoni being a writer on this?
I think it works. I don't think he's going to do it in a vacuum. I don't think this is like, okay, he's going to do the whole thing. It's a very collaborative process. I do think that part of the magic of Mando Season 1 was Filoni and Favreau teaming up together.
Yeah.
I think the more that the two of them come side by side, you're going to get, I mean, we see it. We talk every now and then about the, what were they called? The gallery episodes where they sit around the table after that first season and they talk about it's ideas. You know, if you and I sat around and, you know, had a beer and bounced ideas off of each other, you'd say something and I'd say something. We go, what about that? Like you push each other higher. And I think Filoni and Favreau have a really great working relationship and a similar love of Star Wars that's going to allow them to kind of push this in the ways you want it to be. Sometimes if you write by yourself, sometimes if you write with somebody that you don't know as well or doesn't know you and your loves and your passion, you know, and hit your buttons, then it's not going to come out the same. But I think these two guys have a special, you know, chemistry or synergy that's going to make this, has the potential to make this really exciting.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And I think, like, I'll say it, and you know, I'll duck after I say it. But I'm glad Filoni is not directing it. I think, I think we're gonna find, and I think this movie has the potential to be fantastic and a next level film because Favreau knows how to make a movie. He knows how to make a movie. Look at Iron Man. Look at all this other stuff. Filoni knows how to tell a story. Look at the Clone Wars. Look at Ahsoka. And look, Ahsoka, I like the story, but again, it was super clunky. And again, that we could go back into our Disney Plus streaming conversation. But the reality is, Filoni knows how to tell stories. Favreau knows how to make movies. The combination could be magic. The other thing is, I wonder if this is also sort of training wheels for him to do his Heir to the Empire movie, which I wonder if where that stands. We have not heard that talked about at all. We've recognized that Mando season 4 is essentially this movie. But will Filoni get to do a full movie? Or, I mean, I just really feel like this is going to be a very special movie. And I think they are going to be very mindful of the canon knowledge that Filoni brings to it. And being the nerd in the room. And Favreau knows to let Filoni do that. Let him be that guy. Let's see how it works.
Yeah. So. Let him cook, as the kids say.
As the children today say.
As the children say. Well, we have another news story that we're going to jump on to. Our man Boba Fett is still waiting for that call. Tamira Morrison, known for his iconic portrayal of Boba Fett, has revealed that he was initially slated to appear in Mandalorian Season 4. But those plans have changed. During a panel at Fan Expo Chicago, Morrison shared that while he was supposed to have a role in the now canceled 4th season, also interesting language there, because if we ever get a 4th season, No, we didn't. So I don't know that it was necessarily canceled.
Right.
He hasn't been contacted about appearing in the upcoming film, The Mandalorian and Grogu. There was going to be a Mando season 4, I think. There's the key word, I think. Yeah. And I was going to turn up in that. But as of now, I'm still waiting for a phone call, to be quite honest, Morrison said. While filming already is underway for the movie, it seems unlikely that Boba Fett will be a part of the story. Morrison's absence is notable, given that Fett played a significant role in the Mandoverse era of Star Wars, especially following the Book of Boba Fett. His recent absence from Star Wars media has been surprising to fans, leading to speculation about whether his character's journey in the galaxy far, far away is over, or if Lucasfilm is simply keeping any potential involvement under wraps. For now, it appears that Boba Fett's future is uncertain. The key is that is right at the end, keeping it under wraps. How many actors, Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, the amount of people that have said, no, I'm not doing that. No, they haven't called me. I haven't heard anything about it. Of course they haven't. Of course you're not going to say that. That's the point. That's what gets us to the theaters. That's what keeps people going. He's going to show up. I have no doubt he's going to show up somewhere. He's beloved. That character is beloved. Honestly, Tamura Morrison and or Boba Fett, either one, are more beloved than the Acolyte was. And there's money to be made on putting that helmet, putting that face in something that's still coming up. He's going to show back up. Where is he going to show up?
But, it's interesting. There's this weird thing going on with Star Wars right now. And it's, you and I are some of the rare people who are willing to be completely and brutally honest about it. Not everybody loved Book of Boba Fett. And people are maybe a little soured on what the Boba Fett character became. We'll add to that Tamura Morrison has also been outspoken about saying things like, I didn't like the way they wrote Boba Fett. That wasn't my Boba Fett, essentially. Those weren't his words, and I know I'm putting words in his mouth. But the tone from Tamura has been, this wasn't what I expected from this character. Maybe I have this bigger thing in mind that Lucasfilm right now is very cognizant of what has divided the fandom, not what was driven by the grifters, but if you talk to the average fan who our good friend Matt meets at the liquor store in Enid, Ohio, if they didn't love Book of Boba Fett's dead. Sorry. If they didn't love or even know about the Acolyte is dead. People know Mando. People know Baby Yoda. People know Carson Teva. The average guy knows that pilot guy. They might not know who it is, but they know that pilot guy. And when you make a multi-million-dollar movie, you need to have that in there. There's no way that Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine, sorry, Ryan, I gotta give you your credit first. That as full of Easter eggs and fun cameos as it was, that's not what sold that movie. People know Wolverine and Deadpool.
Correct.
95% of the people who were in that $1 billion audience didn't know who Elektra was, right? They didn't know who Gambit was. They didn't know. I mean, they even made that the reference in the movie. You would have to be a very niche audience to know that Gambit was once considered and it was going to be that actor and all that stuff. So, but it's because they're characters, people are not going to go to the movie theater to see a character that they don't love as much. If Book of Boba Fett was the film that it was supposed to be, it might have been a different story. But so that's where that is. All right. Well, we could continue on that, but we're not going to. We're going to hit our next and our fourth and final story of the night, which is K2SO lives. I could not be happier. Diego Luna is building anticipation for the second and final season of Andor. It's not being canceled for season 3. It's just not planned. It's not happening. It's going straight into Rogue One. Let's get that off the table. Particularly with the return of K2SO, Cassian Andor's beloved droid companion from Rogue One. The new season, set to release in 2025, promises to explore the origins of Cassian and K2SO's friendship, offering deeper insights into their dynamic, but that's not all fans can expect. Expect to see Luna's Andor conclude with new layers of meaning to Rogue One, changing how viewers perceive the film. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly last week, Luna explained, "You're going to see why K2 is so important to Rogue One. Everything will be signified differently, knowing what had to happen for K2 to be there." He hinted that the final season will not only reshape our understanding of K2SO, but also shed new light on the characters from Rogue One. Though Luna didn't specify which characters, he did confirm that Orson Krennic will return and teased other surprise appearances. Luna even suggested that fans might want to watch Andor Season 2 and Rogue One back-to-back for the full experience. As Luna put it, revisiting Rogue One after watching Andor will make viewers see the film in a different way. Nick, I was excited about Andor Season 2 to begin with. I know we were both big fans of that show. But when I look at the Disney era of Star Wars, my two favorite characters are K2SO and Orson Krennic.
So
if we're bringing those two in, I sign me up. I'm there. I am there, and I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see it. What are your thoughts?
Same thing. And, you know, I try to find ways to, counter some of the things you say and have a different take. But when it comes to K2, I'm 100% on board. Not quite as in the tank for Orson Krennic as you are, but K2 is top tier droid, right there with R2, right there with R5D4. Like, those are my droid guys. But there's so much to be excited about. Honestly, I've never been a big Saw Gerrera guy, but in that little bit of, teaser footage that we saw from D23 the other week, and he flashes through it, I'm like, oh, that guy. And like that speech that he gives in Andor Season 1, like it in Rogue One, I was like, okay, Saw Gerrera, I don't care.
Yep.
Rebels Saw Gerrera, kind of annoying, takes things away, other than it's what prompts the great Mon Mothma hologram speech outside the temple. But I'm sitting there going, I had a moment where I went, am I excited for Saw Gerrera all of a sudden? Like, the hype for this show probably is near the top of anything we've experienced since the last time we had a movie in the theater, for me personally.
I'm with you. And I think it's because Tony Gilroy also makes good stuff. And we know, and here's the thing that's part of my bigger sort of thinking about where Disney Plus and everything is. Let one creator drive the whole thing. I think that becomes part of the problem. I know there's different directors for the episodes, but Tony is behind everything with the show, and he was behind everything for season 1. he worked on Rogue One, of course, and so let him tell that story. And if we don't get to a point at the end of Rogue One or at the end of Andor Season 2 that we don't put Tony Gilroy into the pantheon of the best creators of Star Wars, we're not doing him a service. Because put him up there with Irvin Kershner, put him up there with Lawrence Kasdan, put him up there with Dave Filoni for certain. And the guy has made, frankly, some of the best Star Wars we've ever seen. And that's now, we're saying this and we're just making assumptions that season 2 is going to be amazing, but you know what?
Right.
It's going to be amazing. I can say that with more confidence than I can say that about any of the other series that we've had come out.
That's 100% correct. And it's simply a matter of, and that's not to say that Leslie Headland is not quality. That's not to say Dave Filoni is not quality. But when you take somebody like a Tony Gilroy, you take Beau Willimon, who's writing this series, who wrote for House of Cards, which was very high. Like, you go to a different level when you bring some of this in. And Favreau and Filoni, they do their thing. And I'm so glad I love Bryce Dallas Howard. Her episodes of Mando are some of my favorites. I'm not saying the work that those people, but there is something to a unified vision, a showrunner, and somebody who says, this is where we want to go with this. And, you don't budge and you don't hesitate. And I love, all the little, and whether they're apocryphal or not, the stories about how Tony Gilroy doesn't really know Star Wars. He just knows, war movies and whatever. But guess what? Pretty much freaking works.
Yeah. And again, I think it's, I'm very curious because I feel like he's got a love for the characters that he brought into Rogue One, or that he inherited from Rogue One, right? I mean, he wasn't the original writer of it. And Diego Luna has a passion for this character. Alan Tudyk as K2SO is some of the best Star Wars casting. And I also feel like Orson Krennic is perfectly cast. So
Agreed.
I feel like we're going to get there. And you live in this really interesting world where you can have space witches and you can have military war movies, and they can all work together, and you don't have to compare. And what Greg said earlier is so perfect, that if you just need to go in and enjoy it. And if it's Star Wars, it's every type of story, and just love it, just have fun with it. And if you don't like it, then that's cool, move on. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. So well, Nick, this was a very busy show, and again, we did not spend as much time as we expected to talking about the Acolyte. But I think I think that story's exhausted, and I'm exhausted hearing people talk about it. I will just go on record saying I understand a lot of people are very disappointed the show has gone. I was, the way people feel about Andor, the way people feel about the Acolyte going away is honestly the way I felt the way about Dark Crystal not coming back on Netflix, because I loved that show. I felt that way about Willow. When Willow ended, my son was like, I can't wait for season 2. It didn't work out. So I was disappointed, but it's a business decision. And we, as fans of entertainment, we need to realize that if we're not making it, business decisions will be made around it. So that's where we are.
That's it. And we didn't get as much into that this week, but if we're going to tease a little bit, we talk about next week.
Yeah.
We are going to be back, and we are going to be talking with our good friend Clinton Yates from ESPN.
Yes.
From Never Tell Me the Odds. And we're going to do kind of a little bit more of a deep dive dig into the Acolyte. He sent me a message after it was over with, and after we got this news this week, just talking about his disappointment, but his disappointment because looking at it from a story standpoint, he's talked many times with us and when he's been on about how he's a story and a narrative guy. And he said, I really want to come talk about this. So we're going to talk about that next week with Clinton.
Awesome.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's not going to necessarily be as much about, the canceling and the who did this and who did that, but talk about the show, talk about the meat of, what it really is. So I'm excited to talk to him.
That's awesome. I can't wait for that either. And so we will be back next week and the week after and the week after that. Every Thursday night, you're home for Star Wars content. And Nick, may the Force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But time, friend, time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.